One of the people living in Lumberton, North Carolina, were hit by Hurricane Matthew in 2016. It was an experience many residents had hoped they'd never have to live through again. More than a foot of rain sent the Lumber River to its highest crest in history. Entire communities were left underwater. And yet, not even 2 years later, Hurricane Florence broke Matthew's records, dumping more than 22 inches of rain that sent the Lumber River to never-before-seen levels. So the question is, how can we make our communities more resilient to future flooding? Well, one option might be retrofitting homes with floating foundations. Dr. Elizabeth English is the founder of the Buoyant Foundation Project. Dr. English, let's start with the logistics of the project. How does this work?
How does it work? Well, retrofitting an existing house works best if it's already elevated a little bit off the ground, like the shotgun houses in Louisiana or a lot of bungalow houses. And underneath the house, you have to put a structural frame to carry buoyancy blocks, which provide the uplift when the flood comes. And so you have the buoyancy blocks underneath the house, attached to the house with a frame. And then you also have a set of vertical guidance posts, which are posts adjacent to the house along the sides that are attached to the frame. And the frame slides up and down on the vertical guidance post. So when the water comes, the buoyancy lifts the house and the house goes up and it slides up and down on the vertical guidance posts and stays up as long as the water is there, and when the water goes away, it comes back down and sits back on its original foundation. It's pretty simple.
I assume it's those posts that let the house kind of lift up evenly so that nothing's tilting or shaking with the water, but all of this sounds very expensive as well. How does a normal homeowner go through that and retrofit a home?
It's actually not very expensive. We have a community in South Louisiana here that has been doing something similar to this for 40 years. And they do it for $5 to $10 a square foot. Now, I don't think we can do that, but we ought to be able to get something more like $20, $25, $30 a square foot when we've done a few more of them.
Dr. English, have you talked with any folks in the flood insurance world to talk about how maybe people who go this route might be able to have lower flood insurance premiums to make up some of the cost?
Well, one would think that that would be the case. And actually, the reinsurance industry, the insurers who insure the regular insurance companies, they're very interested in this because they realize that the total amount of claims would very likely go down. But right now, our policies and government regulations and lack of building codes make it very difficult to implement this. And so insurance is caught up in that too.
That resiliency is such an important part of this topic. Dr. Elizabeth English, thanks so much for your time this evening.
I want to take you out west. Horrific scenes in El Dorado County in California. Here, the Caldor fire is racing through the California hillsides. It's being fueled by dry, gusty wind, and a red flag warning remains in effect here tonight. Firefighters say these kinds of weather conditions can lead to really erratic fire behavior. Now, this fire has already scorched through more than 50,000 acres, including nearly the entire town of Grizzly Flats. That's since it sparked on Saturday. And then on the flip side of things, across the desert Southwest, it's too much rain. Floodwaters moving quickly in Globe, Arizona tonight or this afternoon as days of heavy rain. The southwest monsoon ongoing has left some areas just too soaked. That flash flood warning continues for portions of the desert Southwest, including around that Globe area. But take a look at all of the warnings north of Phoenix. We've got warnings into the state of Utah, portions of Colorado also under warnings. But the highest concentration of the flash flood warnings really focus there into Arizona, areas north and northeast of Phoenix. Here we've got Maricopa County under a flash flood warning. Considerable threat tag on this one. This is gauge indicated, and this warning continues continues until 6:15 local time. Keep in mind, there are still heavy rain showers moving through the area. So while you're dry now, you've got another shower, heavy rain shower coming in that's going to offer up more wet weather. There along 101, another flash flood warning. Areas south of Payson, along 17, even south of Prescott, we've got flash flood warnings, and areas south and west of Flagstaff, a flash flood warning currently in effect. We've seen a similar scenario here across the state of Utah, some heavy showers bringing the threat of flash flooding, prompting some of those flash flood warnings. By the way, we also continue with a severe thunderstorm watch until 8 o'clock local time for parts of Utah. Mark?
And a brand new tornado warning to tell everyone about as well. This is in extreme northern Alabama. You can see Huntsville there on the center of your screen. Just west from there, portions of Limestone County. Radar indicated spin moving directly towards Athens. You can see some of this spin right here where the reds and greens are next to each other. Even a couple of questionable pixels here where there might be a little bit of something going on, maybe some debris with that storm. We've been following severe weather across the southeast tonight and some new alerts to tell you about, including a new tornado warning in northern Alabama. Here's the wide view of the radar picture. Broken line of storms from Nashville down to near Huntsville and then curling back towards Mississippi. But it is that section that is approaching Huntsville that now has a confirmed tornado on it. Tornado confirmed moving into the Athens area right now. So if you are west of Huntsville near Athens, please seek shelter immediately, putting as many walls between you and this storm as possible. Again, that tag right here does not get on every single storm. Observed tornado. There are spotters in the area that are watching this tornado in progress moving into the Athens area. Let's get a little bit closer in using the technology side of it to show you that rotation. And it's right in here where the reds and greens are near each other. Greens going towards the radar like this, red color backing in the other way. And within that area, no clear sign from the technology of there being debris in the air. But again, Alex, an observed tornado here. If you're in the Athens area near I-65, please seek shelter.
Got to be careful. We've got a lot going on, and we also have seen those updates to our Henri forecast cone. 29 million people roughly in the forecast cone of this tropical storm, likely to intensify into a hurricane. That is expected. And in the forecast cone, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, other major metros, Boston in coastal New England. So Dr. Knabb breaking down what's steering Henri westward, because I think a lot of people look at this forecast cone and go, that's an odd direction.
Yeah, and as we look at the pattern, it's kind of the same atmospheric features in the big scale that are steering both Fred and Henri, just on opposite sides of those atmospheric features. For the moment, Henri is on the south side of the high, and it's steering Henri westward. Probably become a hurricane over the next day or two as it gets toward even warmer waters. And then it will turn northward ahead of the trough that is ushering Fred out of the United States. I'll show you how that plays out in just a little bit. It will cross the Gulf Stream and then get to cooler waters and slow down. So after maybe peaking in intensity east of Cape Hatteras, it might weaken a bit, but it's not going to make the storm go away. And so you got half the cone that would imply a direct landfall. The other half of the cone would miss New England. But in any case, we're going to not have landfall on the southeast or mid-Atlantic coast of the U.S., but you're going to feel the swells from the hurricane because it's going to be pretty close by, high risk of rip currents and rough surf, life-threatening conditions at the beaches that you need to listen to the lifeguards about. Chances of tropical storm conditions in those areas small. The greatest chances are in southeastern New England, Cape Cod and the islands, about 30% in Boston, 20% in New York. And those numbers might seem small given that you're in the cone, but that's because the cone is just where the center might go. And if it ends up going farther to the right again, then you might not get those tropical storm conditions. If you do, they could start on Sunday morning, though, so the watch could go up on Friday morning. Here's the previous GFS main model track, but you see all the ensembles, the alternative scenarios. But let me show you the new GFS. That previous GFS had a landfall in southeastern New England. The latest GFS, and again, you see how close it is to the east coast of the U.S. producing those swells. This one bends a little bit more to the right. It doesn't make a direct landfall, but that's certainly kind of like a bona fide nor'easter, just hurricane style as we go from Sunday into Monday. So, Mark, given that, I don't think that with the Euro that the Hurricane Center is going to change their next official track very much.
No, how could they, right? It's too close for comfort. And it's also not the only storm we have blowing through right now. You can hear the wind in Cancun. It's been picking up slowly but steadily here as Grace approaches, a hurricane approaching the Yucatan, and then the rest of Mexico as well could also have that same hurricane come through, Dr.
Yeah, it's going to be blowing a lot harder in Cancun and Cozumel later tonight and tomorrow as the tropical storm conditions start late tonight, and then the hurricane comes ashore, and we've got hurricane force winds and storm surge. Could be a damaging situation there for the Yucatan Peninsula. Inland as well have concerns because of the heavy rainfall. Now, we don't have the intermediate public advisory yet from the Hurricane Center. That'll be out in the next 5 to 7 minutes, but on the previous advisory, max winds at 80 miles an hour on a gradual strengthening trend as it moves just north of west. Hurricane warning there for Cancun and Cozumel, and you're going to have some heavy rain that could be a foot or more. Then it'll likely re-strengthen over the southwest Gulf, maybe as strong as 85 miles an hour, maybe a little more than that. And you might be wondering, what does all that mean for the Gulf of Mexico? Totally clear? Well, you're not going to get hurricane or tropical storm conditions, but the swells from Grace and the onshore flow that you're going to get, especially over in Texas, means that there's a high risk of rip currents from St. George Island, Florida, all the way around down to South Padre. I'll be back in a moment to summarize everything that Fred, Grace, and Henri are up to.
Improving trends for a tornado warning in northern Alabama. This was observed as a funnel, potentially a tornado here in Limestone County, but as it moved into the Athens area, the town of Athens, circulation seemed to get much broader. As you can see here, kind of a wind shift line where the greens and reds are near each other, but not really tightly packed together. No clear sign of debris right now. So again, I think this, although still a chance for a tornado, is much better than the alternative of definitely a tornado. I think it's getting a little bit better. Dr. Knabb, over to you.
Mark, post-tropical Fred is producing a very dangerous night in Pennsylvania and New York with flash flood warnings all over the place. I'll pick out one of them in the southern portion of western New York. This is in Bath and Hornell and Wayland. Considerable threat that's in effect till midnight tonight. Look at some of the reports. We've got stranded cars. We've got flooded bridges and roads. We even got the foundation wall of a residence collapsed by flash flooding. Folks, stay off the roads in the flash flood warning areas. Henri is almost a hurricane. We'll get the next advisory from the Hurricane Center in a little less than 3 hours. I don't expect on the next advisory as much change to the track as we saw at 5 p.m., but this certainly is a significant threat to the northeast in terms of wind and water with a slow-moving tropical storm or hurricane. Even if it doesn't make landfall, it's likely to be close enough to produce some significant impacts with the tropical storm force winds perhaps starting in southeastern New England on Sunday morning. So watches could go up on Friday. High risk of rip currents and high surf even well outside the cone for the entire east coast of the U.S. We do have the intermediate public advisory on Hurricane Grace. Max winds at 80 miles an hour. Conditions are deteriorating in Cancun and Cozumel, where there's a hurricane warning in effect. They're going to get storm surge, and then this is going to cross into the southwestern Gulf and make landfall in mainland Mexico.